Did NASA discover an alien base on the moon? That's what it looks like, according to Carl Wolf, very smart engineer kind of guy from the Air Force. Very credentialed. I will read you some of his credentials so you can see that he is indeed the real deal. And, we should take what he says fairly seriously, because you would not think that a career Air Force guy at his level would be making up wild stories that would not benefit him at all and would probably hurt him. So, a very intriguing story. Get in here. This is Jack Connor with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. Please comment on the story as I'm going through it. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I'd love it if you would share these videos when they drop on social media. If you wanted to support the channel and help me spend more time on Cosmic Road and make these videos as good as I can make them, please consider becoming a channel member to receive exclusive access and videos. See the first line in the description below. Or you can simply leave a tip in the tip jar with the super thanks feature below, right next to the like button. Another fun way you can support the channel: I'm a novelist. I write fantasy, science fiction books. You can find me on Amazon, Jack Connor. That's one of my books right there, The Atomic Sea. All right, this is going to be a great story. Let me just read you some of his qualifications from the Air Force page, and then I will take you to his story. Mr. Wolf was commissioned through the Air Force ROTC program. His acquisition career includes test flight, foreign intelligence assessment, and program management assignments. He conducted all-weather evaluations and subsystem development of the F-16A, B, A-10A, air-launched cruise missile, F-15C conformal fuel tanks, and structural upgrades. Upon graduation from test pilot school in '84, he directed transition of critical stealth capabilities from developmental to operational at the squadron, group, and wing levels for the F-117A. So he worked on the stealth, and the B-2A. In 1990, he transitioned from active duty to reserve, where he ultimately was assigned as the individual mobilization augmentee to the Director, Special Programs, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force Acquisition. He retired in 2007 after a 30-year career, and now he's in the private sector, apparently doing very well. So he's the technical director of the Air Force Rapid Capabilities Office, etc. Anyway, I'll provide this link. So there you have it. He's the real deal as far as being a very qualified Air Force engineer kind of guy. So without further ado, let's go to his comments on the what NASA found on the moon.
He told me how everything worked. He showed me the equipment where the digital information came in, where it was converted to photographic images. They were doing 35 millimeter strips of film at that time, which were then assembled into 18.5 by 11 inch mosaics, they were called. There was a digital signature and a grayscale on every 35 millimeter strip. And those strips were from successive passes around the moon. And they would take and build up a photograph. They would scan one section of the moon, then another and another, and then they would get a larger image. So this mosaic then would be put in that contact printer, and that was then a print that was issued to whomever, the press, the scientist, whatever, wherever that was intended to go. So he was showing me how all this worked, and we walked over to one side of the lab, and he said, "By the way, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon." And I said, "Whose?" "What do you mean, whose?" He said, "Yes, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon." And at that point, I became frightened, and I was a little terrified, thinking to myself that if anybody walks in the room now, I know we're in jeopardy, we're in trouble, because he shouldn't be giving me this information. I was fascinated by it, but I also knew that he was overstepping a boundary that he shouldn't be stepping over. And then he pulled out one of these mosaics and showed this base, which had geometric shapes. There were towers, there were spherical buildings, there were very tall towers, and things that looked somewhat like radar dishes, but they were large structures. So I didn't say any more to him because I was concerned again that somebody was going to come in at any moment, would catch us having this conversation, and we would be in real trouble. I realized that he was telling me this information because he didn't have anybody else to talk to. Now, probably in that laboratory, he was probably one of the few enlisted people, and he was a worker bee. And he had a high-level security clearance, obviously, but he couldn't share that information with anybody else. And in those days, we didn't. When you had your security clearance, you took it seriously. It isn't like today where people don't take these things seriously. We had a different set of morals and ethics and values. That's the way we were raised, and we stayed bound by those agreements. So it was rare that someone would do something like this. But this fellow and I were the same rank. I think he was very distressed. He had the same pallor and demeanor as the scientists outside the room. They were just as concerned as he was, and he needed to discuss it with somebody. So that was the end of it right there. I didn't take it any further than that. I just filed it away. But the interesting thing, every day that I went home, I would think to myself, I can't wait to hear about this on the news, And, so I'd turn on the TV and I'd look at the news to see if they're going to announce, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon, being really naive, And, of course, here it is 30-some years later, and we still haven't heard about it.
Isn't that wild? So we've got an alien base on the moon, right? I mean, I'm a little disappointed that he didn't ask any follow-up questions. The guy that he was talking to apparently was very willing to talk. I hope he didn't get in any trouble after Carl Wolf came out about this. But yeah, so why not ask some follow-up questions there, fella? Was it an alien base? Was it a human base? Was it, people from Atlantis? Was it the Germans from World War II? Are we talking mole men? What are we talking about? Whose base is that? Is it Bigfoot? Is it a Bigfoot base on the moon? What are we dealing with? So, some follow-up questions would have been helpful. How long has this thing been there? Has anybody explored it? Et cetera, et cetera. So, this is just a tantalizing tease. But yeah, this corroborates what many or several remote viewers have seen when they have seen structures on the back of the moon. It corroborates some of the wilder tales that we've heard. And like I say, he's a career Air Force guy in the private sector at a very high level. He's not the type of person to make up wild stories for attention. I believe this is a real experience that he had interacting with this individual and being told this information. The fellow seems to have been very alarmed, as were other people in that area, in that lab or whatever. And so it's not, somebody they would have hired to be an actor to perpetuate this disinfo years later. That just seems entirely too convoluted. They would have had to have multiple actors, just to seep out in this very haphazard way. I don't buy it. So I believe that this was a real event that happened, and these were real people reporting what they knew to be true. So yeah, alien base on the moon, or possibly Bigfoot. You never know. Yeah, so what do you think, guys? What is this thing on the moon? Are there more of them? Is it just one installation on the moon? Are there multiple installations on the moon? There was the ringing sound when the NASA flung the was it the discarded rocket launch pad or whatever it was at the moon to see what would happen and to see what noises it would make, and it made a reverberating hollow kind of noise when it hit the moon, as if the moon has some vast hollow spaces. And there are various, accounts of structures within the moon and beings within the moon and all sorts of crazy stuff with the moon. The moon has some very odd features in the way it's positioned in the Earth's orbit. And anyway, I'm not going to get into all the stories and the conspiracy theories about the moon. And I don't say conspiracy theory lightly or disparagingly, but they are some fantastic notions about the moon that may very well be true. But starting off with things that we can confirm, it looks like we can say with fairly high level of confidence that there is a structure of some sort on the backside of the moon, or there was at the time this conversation took place. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. Please smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you don't miss a single video. Please join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. And please, if you enjoy these videos, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a channel member. See the first line in the description below, and there's 2 tiers of membership to receive exclusive access and videos. Until next time, this is Jack with Cosmic Road.